What's up, everybody? Welcome to Stand Up. How
What's
you
up,
doing,
dude?
man?
Yo, living the
Bit-
dream.
It's been another minute, but we're kind of busy, so it's one of those things where you
It's
get
okay.
busy, marketing sinks a little, but I got a lot going on right now. One of which is that I wanted to talk about today was a little bit of this small business and AI niche. It has been a hot topic on X. There are a lot of people who clearly have never sold to a small business trying to give people advice on selling to small businesses, but these are like my people. So I feel
Thanks,
like
dude.
we're quite successful in this space, and deploying AI and technology in general into small to mid-sized businesses is definitely something that I'm thinking, we got a bunch of stuff to talk about. That's for sure.
I think so. I mean, listen, the topic is like, we talk about this all the time, which is the relationship with the computer has substantially changed. And businesses' curiosities of what the computer is capable of has changed. And the barrier to entry of adopting your own technology that's specific for your business has changed. And so I just love this climate. I think why not empower small business? Small business doesn't mean small money. Small business typically means maybe small footprint, small roster of staff, maybe small infrastructure, small expenses, but it doesn't necessarily mean small money. These businesses are more accurate with their money, I would say, or that's really how it should be. And so, yeah, I absolutely love that. But before we jump into the topic for today, I have a departure.
All right.
You and me are in pursuit of one thing. I'm in pursuit of mastery. And whatever that is along the way, whatever that looks like, but there are lots of examples. And if we look at some of the examples that are really specific to you and me, there are clues, there is motivation in every angle, and it's no secret. You and me were born in the wild, we're born on the rock. And so one of the things that I have looked at, and I know you do too, as an example of what mastery looks like, what absolute perfection looks like, that withstands the test of time, is the Alpinist.
Love that book.
The absolute beacon of perfection, in my perspective. No political agenda. It's about stories about our peers. It's about the pursuit of mastery. It's not filled with advertisement. It's filled with excellence.
Quality. It's
Quality.
the pursuit of quality. It's also scarce. It's not monthly. I believe it's quarterly.
Quarterly. And so I get the Alpinist. I subscribe to it. I also just believe in supporting great art, especially this medium of the magazine, which is kind of a dying thing. And I like turning the page. I like seeing this and holding it and feeling it. And this is where you
I
get
do not like the online version. I
I
agree
don't
with
like the
you. I
online
don't.
version. I'm just not a Kindle guy. I know you're remarkable. I like less technology. I don't really do that much reading on my phone, or I don't even own an iPad. I like the physical thing, man. I like reading a real book. I like that stuff. And that also influences my style. It influences how we think about the world. It influences the type of knowledge that you and I possess, which is unique and different. And that's what people love us for. And so, of course, I'm flipping through the magazine this month, and this is not so much about climbing. It's more so about, can I explain in a few words how my brain works and how our brains work, which are quite similar, but also diverge appropriately, right? And so there's a short poem in this release. And so I wanted to read you the poem.
Okay.
You know me, I'm a sappy bitch, bro. I cry for no reason at all. The poem made me cry, but it likely will not make me cry when I read it right now, but I will do my best. I will do my best. The poem is called Huandoy. Huandoy is a mountain in Peru. So I don't even know what the mountain's name has to do with the poem, but I think the poem is on brand. On brand.
Okay. Let's hear it.
Here's how it goes. Ready? A place so quiet, I can only hear what I long for. Once, in the Cordillera Blanca, the fire blue glaciers I'd dreamt about were just gray slabs beneath clouds. And the wind played with silence in the same way a promise plays with the heart. Near the summit, I understood. Climbing is also a dance with sorrow. Clouds were laced with gold and stones held the waves of lost oceans, and I turned to look over the vast range as it cradled sunset. But all I could see was you, working the garden alone, you making a home out of camas and allium, you crowning the sky with lilac and dogwood blossoms. I prayed, let me get back home. Let me enter the afternoon of blossoms, shaken free by you. Let me feel what it means to be held. I know how wind takes prayer and smashes it against stone. I watched a man die in the mountains, a man who didn't want to die in the mountains. On a ledge near a summit, I will never know. I think again of you. Longings prick among the brilliant silence of cold cracked stone and crystalline sky. I climb to see the way love looks from above, to taste the tang of distance and hear what it means to be without. And so for me, business for me is an expedition. Business for me is unpredictability. Business for me is what does life look like and love look like and family look like from above. And yes, we are mountaineers, and I really have gotten that perspective. And so this speaks to me on like a bunch of different mediums, but I read this at my dinner table with my children around. And man, like this was just like the first thing that came to my brain is not that I actually have held a man dying at 16,000 feet in cardiac arrest. I've done that. That's scary. That's real. But this was about the subliminal. This was about like the metaphor of what climbing always is to us. This is the absolute unknown. This is the exposed. This is the, while I'm doing the thing, I love it, but I'm longing for home. While I'm here in my office and I'm out in the field and I'm trying to find my way, our wives are at home building a house, building a home. And so I read this and, it like fully made me cry. I'm trying not to right now, but the accuracy of what we're trying to do together for the benefit of our families, for the benefit of our vision, for in pursuit of this exposure, this uncomfortability that like you and me have just embraced as part of the battle of building. And so I'd love your reflection too.
Yeah, it's a good one as I would have expected in the Alpinist. What I think about is, you're right. A lot of times I equate building the business with climbing a mountain. It's very unknown. And one of the things I tell people about the best climbs of my life is that you don't really get to enjoy them when you're on them. You enjoy them when they're done. And a lot of times it's like when you're kissing the ground. And I've definitely gotten off of climbs where you're like, that amazing. That was sick. I loved it. And then someone goes, you want to do another? And you're like, nope, I'm good for the day. I was like, I'm good for the day.
Yeah,
I'm good for the day. That was, that was it. Like, that was hard. That was scary. I'm psyched. And in some ways, business kind of gives me that hair standing up on the back of my neck kind of feeling where when I'm done with it, I'm going to be really like, oh, remember that, remember that, remember that. You want to do it again? Nope. Listen, that's not what everybody wants to hear all the time. Like a lot of people kind of like, entrepreneurship kind of gets a bit of a romantic notion about it. But sometimes I do think that, that when you're in the thick of it, especially where we are, I think we're at one of the hardest points in business because we're not small enough that it doesn't matter. And we're not big enough that it's easy again. Like listen, you can't, people have said this, when you get to like tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, it does get a bit easier, even the emotional aspects of it, because it's a bigger thing. It's harder to kill. We are in the place where there's both a lot to lose and a lot to gain. And so you're kind of in the middle of the climb, you're in the crux, and you just want to succeed. And the funny thing about climbing in the crux point of it is it's not super fun, but it's going to be awesome when you achieve it. And so you sort of always look a little bit ahead. Now, quieting the silence, that's the other piece of that poem that was really interesting to me, which was thinking about, basically the beauty of nature and the world outside of this. And that's one thing that I miss a little bit, especially being kind of in the tech space, is you don't get as much time to do those things. You get, there's definitely like a bit of it's a different kind of mountain, so to speak. But I will say there's definitely something to be said for the idea that you climb the mountain to look back and be psyched, but you don't necessarily want to relive. And I think very many business owners, when they start another business, I'm not saying I wouldn't start another business, but it's very different starting another business after you've made your first 100 million or whatever, than when it's like, this is how I'm going to survive. And if this doesn't work, I got to go back to work. I don't just get to like try again with more money. Like, and even going back to work in some cases is not exactly an easy avenue back. So I think about that, the point of no return, a lot, and like how being past it can be deeply uncomfortable. And just like being, high above your gear in the crux on a climb, and all you're thinking about is, I just want to get out of this moment right here. And but I want to get out of it through success, not by backing down. This is like the cognitive dissonance of being on being on a difficult climb. People are like, well, why don't you just like not do that climb because it's going to be scary? And I'm like, wow, I still
It
want to do
must
it.
be done.
I still want to do it.
You don't understand. If you ask that question, you truly don't understand what my draw is. Like, this is not an option.
This is the book.
It's not an option for us, dude. Like, it is go and die on the hill if I have to.
I
Maybe it's a
recommend
little bit
this.
about my brain.
Feeding the rat. He calls this chasing that feeling, feeding the rat. And this is one of my favorite climbing books. I was reading it the night in that Airbnb. This is kind of, I'll read this little section to you. Maybe you'll cry. I don't know. Because now that we're getting in the reading, but this is just actually in the introduction. It's not in the, but I thought this is true too of business, right? It's like the best climbing partner carries a particular mix of attributes. He is bold, and his boldness is informed by imagination. Better yet, his imagination is reliable. It can identify the most plausible or the most interesting way to try to climb a particular stretch of mountain. The best climbing partner is skillful and tough enough to back up his boldest decisions. He is happy, at least in the mountains, and that makes him intelligent about risk. He weighs risk against potential rewards and sometimes curbs his most unreasonable desires. He walks away from climbs that are too dangerous. His happiness makes him patient and amusing, while his competence means he will probably save you if you take a bad fall 3 or 4 days from the nearest road. The best climbing partner is in love with climbing. The beauty, the silence, the difficulties, the setting out and the return, the mountain and its embrace. He loves the comradeship of climbing, which means that he loves his partner, at least to the extent that his partner is worthy of such regard. Feeding the rat suggests Mo owned all of these qualities, but that little segment there, I remember reading that and said that could parallel business very, very much in terms of the partnership, right? Relationship with risk, being bold, knowing when to turn back, knowing when you're, all of these things we've been through in business. And I think that
you could ad lib what you just read, like just replace climber with businessman.
Climbing with especially if you're out there bootstrapping. So
Totally.
like, this is kind of the biggest, this is something I've been as I've been doing a ton of like reading in philosophy and humanities and what it means to be a moral and right human, because I do feel incredibly challenged by AI in this way. And I think that I've never actually come forward and spoke about it very much. And I told you the other day, I was working on, in essence, from one of my podcasts with Nana, like a manifesto. And I came to this idea of this almost a Hippocratic Oath for technology and morality and the ethics behind it, because sometimes I feel that I almost need a compass that says, especially these days in business, because there is a lot we are asked to do. There are a lot of tooling we're doing. And I'm always asking myself, am I doing no harm? And that's where the Hippocratic Oath came in. Am I risking things? But I want to make sure first and foremost that I am doing no harm. And this again comes back to the mountains, right? Leave no trace. Now in business, we leave a big bunch of trace. We're trying to leave trace, right? Like, we're trying to get people to notice us. No doubt about that. But
at what cost, though?
I am deeply concerned with what I see coming out of some of the tooling that I use every day, some of the rhetoric coming out of the tooling I use every day, some people that I once held, and it's probably really hard because I do still hold them in high regard. It's hard to hear some of the things that I've heard come out of the tech world from people I held in high regard, and I hold in high regard. I'm
They
trying to
lost
find the right words.
lost touch. They lost the plot. They forgot that the reason why they were creating this was for the proliferation of humanity, to get across the chasm of potential.
For people.
And it turned into a for profit. It turned into for in spite. It turned into this thing that was against the progress of humanity. It was more the replacement. And when you start saying those types of things, it's like literally nothing more than marketing and positioning. It's nothing more than to rile people up. And, but that doesn't mean that I have to be gaslit. That doesn't mean that I have to align. That doesn't mean that I need to participate in that. And you and me have a responsibility because I'm dealing with people. I'm dealing with their money. I'm dealing with people's life savings. I'm dealing with departures from their jobs and careers and their families. What we do is real. And so if the things that I don't build in this world are valuable, are things that I support as a human, I'm doing harm by building these types of things. And I'm not talking about building something that's going to lead to like actual physical harm. Like there is a line for sure, even mental harm, even the loss of jobs, even the loss of
Well,
livelihood.
that to me is so there are people out there, and I don't know where they get this attitude from, but they sort of come at it as this was not this didn't give this person purpose. These were stupid jobs. Nobody could like doing this. And I always think, man, what a so you when you walk into a store and someone rings you up, you think, God, you must hate your life. Like that's how you think about them when like, the idea that, and I do think there is danger in deriving your purpose from your job or your craft. This is something also that is much in many philosophy, religion, right? It comes back to deriving your purpose from the material world, but even a craft, even something like programming can be something that you abuse, right? We think of something like temperance, right? The idea of being able to restrain the over, now some people think of temperance as like abstaining. It's not abstaining. It's being able to control yourself. You hear about these people who are like,
Discipline.
and Mark Andreessen calls them the AI vampires, the people who can't stop coding late into the night because all that they want to do is build the next idea, build the next idea, build the next idea. And I think this is sort of this is a form of addiction. Like you are taking this too far, or you may be taking this too far. He's like, oh yeah, they look horrible, but they're happy, and I'm like, are you sure about that? Like I don't know. Again, to each their own. I just know myself. I'm of course I'm building more than ever. We're growing and things feel great. I sleep at night. I spend time with my kids. I'm gonna go pick them up from school. I did VIP day yesterday. I didn't have an agent in my pocket the whole time. Sometimes I even think about sometimes I even don't want to take photos because I want to stop looking through the phone. How many photos do you have in your phone, right? And like versus when you had 36 photos to take for the whole day. Like you had like 1 or 2 rolls of film, and then the rest of the day you just like, dude, you record random shit now. Just so that it goes, and you pay the cloud storage for it, and you never look, and you hope that one day you're going to look back on that stuff. I mean, I'm sure that we may, we watch the home videos, at home maybe, but there wasn't nearly as much. So I think about the idea of this is just another way, another dopamine hit. And the reason I say that is because I'm still not seeing much useful software get constructed. So it's like a lot of people building lots of stuff, and they're sort of it's great for building MVPs, but is this thing needed? And maybe you'd be better off just not taking the photo and enjoying the ride, like just when I used to go climbing in the mountains, I have, with a film camera, there were 24 photos. Most of the time the camera stayed in the bag. And, until there was maybe a moment on the summit. But other than that, we were in the moment. We were talking, we were working the climb. We were just being people, And so I think about how technology has changed, and when now running a business really requires such an extensive amount of being plugged in. And so does this thing. And then at the same time, everything you build is being used to train a machine. And the owners of the machine are saying there's a good chance that 50% of the people become unnecessary. This is the terminology they use, that they're not necessary anymore. Guys, the whole reason the shit exists is for people. They have to be necessary. So that's where I come into this, the thing I talked to you about, the Hippocratic Oath. I said, my example to you is you're an organ donor, right? And you check that box because you know that when you go into a hospital, that surgeon doesn't go, I'm going to try a little less hard on this guy because I need his kidney for someone I like more or a family member. And there's like an ethic, right? You trust that the surgeon does everything they can. Even if you were a murderer, the surgeon must, through oath, through duty, through what they swear, they must do everything they can to save the human in front of them, right? And not do something unethical, or when we have boards and licensing around this. And not that I'm a big fan of licensing, but I do think that as programmers, there's this idea that keeps coming back to me, and I've been kind of writing, and it's all coming in pieces because I'm doing a lot of research into this and really trying to understand it, of the Hippocratic Oath for technologists, and the idea of what does do no harm mean? For example, if someone comes to me with a project and says, hey, I want you to build this thing, and the goal is to replace these 30 people. I'm out. I gotta be out.
To us. It has happened to us a few times.
That has happened to us, and there was something that just didn't feel right about it, right? And even before AI, you'll remember the people who came to us with that OnlyFans machine idea, and I said to you on the side, I go, even if this guy wants to sign, I can't build this thing. This is just against my morals. Dude, I got to be right. I can't do it. But I thought, but then there's a difference between, hey, I got 30 employees, they're doing all this monotonous work. If I could build a tool that helps them do that, it would free them up to do X. Or, hey, I'm using AI to build tooling to help people who are suffering an affliction, right? Like we're doing tooling for traumatic brain injury. And this tool, the iteration on that tooling is so much better and so much faster by us using AI that it really couldn't have existed before. The funding is extremely constrained. So the cost of that software coming down allows this thing that may benefit the lives of thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds, even a few lives. It may benefit them, but it's not detracting from them. And so now, does that mean that sometimes the surgeon doesn't lose a patient despite their best efforts? No. Does it mean that sometimes if I build something and the unintended consequence was, hey, it does turn out these people ended up getting fired because, this tool actually replaced an entire job function? Yes, that could happen, but it's not the express goal when I set out to build it. And I do think that on the back of that, on the heels of that, there's a responsibility for us to retrain the next generation for what are the jobs that come next. And so this was a big talk when I had spoke to Will Sentence on our podcast about what they're doing for the IRS. It's about retraining people for the future. And I think we have a responsibility to do that as this technology takes off. So what it is it's a commitment to me. It's not just me saying I'm optimistic, because right now you see this could happen, but I'm optimistic, or this could happen and I'm pessimistic. And people are uneasy with that because the road to hell has always been paved in good intentions. And being optimistic isn't enough. You need people who are in these positions of power to say, I'm not going to let that happen. This is my code. The same way the surgeon goes, even if my son is dying and needs your kidney, I am not going to kill you on the table and harvest it because this is against my code. Right? And you may die, and at which point, yes, that of natural causes, but I did everything I could to do right by you, even though I had this other thing. And so when I see people who go, hey, there's a 10% chance that this is going to destroy the world. I mean, this is the literal rhetoric. It's like, this is going to destroy society as we know it. And they go, here's $2 million. I'd like to think that I would be the person who says, no. If there is a 0.1% chance when I'm in a meeting and someone's pitching me a technology and there's like a % chance that it might end the world, does nobody say, no, I can't move forward with that? Does nobody step? Is there no morality at all? Do I think? No, I don't think this is going to happen, but I think that it needs to be more than an I think. It needs to be a, hey, this is the point at which we feel we should be turning back, and this is the line in the sand we're going to draw. And so that's where I'm at. So it's something I've been working on as a more well thought piece than just us talking about it on the podcast, because I think there's a lot to unpack, and I'm sure that a lot of folks are probably thinking to themselves, well, I have an argument for that. Yes, there are a lot of arguments and counterpoints, and I fully see that you're like, well, how do I guarantee that? What about weapons? What if, there's the whole question of what if big bad China gets it first, right? This is everybody. What if they get it first? Well, there's, I talk about that logic too. I reject that logic in general, because we can't just allow ourselves to do every despicable thing under the sun because we want to maintain control or maintain dominance. That there's a point at which we've lost too much of ourselves that winning is actually losing. And that's the part that I want to say, I just am making a commitment to not let that happen to me, to the tooling I build, and to pass everything through this lens of, is this for the betterment of humans or is this not? And who is getting the reward and who gets the choice, right? There's a very big difference between a person who elects to have a dangerous surgery and a group of people who become obsolete when they had no say in what was being built around them, and or our tax dollars now needing to go towards some kind of a UBI system, while someone else gets rich off of the how is that fair, right? Society bears the cost, but you get the reward. So there's a lot of questions that come up, and some would say I overthink these things, but as a builder, as a person who does love their craft, I don't really feel like I can ignore it.
Well, it also does relate back to how you began this episode, which is really about like the barrier to entry for small business. Small businesses are going to get all sorts of creative ideas, but it's one of those things where it's like, just because you can build it doesn't mean you should. And we talk to businesses all the time, kind of just talk them off their ledge that, it's always the integration or the injection of AI into a process. And we're like, but could have always done this with classic computing. Why use AI just for AI's sake? And so what's interesting is like the narrative has changed, the interest of what the computer can do. And most people just shortcut straight to like, oh, how can we use the AI? Mine is more like the invigoration of business. What can businesses now do that they were prohibited from doing even a year or two
ago? I agree. Like the small business that could never hire a person to do this this job. That's the case that I feel good about helping with AI augmentation, which is, it was not a big enough problem to hire a full person to do. And so it always fell on the backs of staff that were super busy and super overworked, and the business becoming more profitable and offloading some of this monotony and augmenting this work now frees the workers up to do more. It also frees the business up to grow. So this is like another piece. I think that you can't cut your way back to prosperity, right? So when you say we implemented AI and we laid people off, how much revenue did you grow?
Right.
No. So all you were able to do was cut, that's another measure of success that I like to think about is this going to enable the business to grow such that everybody can live a better life? Because it doesn't make a ton of sense if a business is really profitable and now you implement this thing and it makes all the workers' lives, but it's already very profitable. It doesn't make a ton of sense to say, well, now let me just get rid of them and I'll make even more profit for myself. Now it's one thing if now you need a different type of worker, right? Oh, well, this job needs to turn into this. That comes back to the training piece. Can we teach people to evolve into the thing that we need? Are we doing the right thing? We have a duty to one another. That's what I'm coming at with, is we have a duty to each other and not just to the board, the market, the dollar. We have a duty to each other first.
I think this episode kind of covered a whole bunch of things, but what I want everybody to get away from this is your why has to be pretty bomb-proof in this life. If you're just aimlessly here going through the motions, prepare to get nowhere. You will literally end up where you started. And so my why, which is very similar to your why, especially as technologists, is to build the next generation of super valuable pieces of technology. Valuable to people, valuable to enterprise, valuable to the world. And so if you lose touch with what your purpose was, and the Hippocratic Oath is designed to ensure that you don't lose touch of why you're here and what your role is. If you lose that, we're no better than the machine. And you're just building because you can, not because you should, not because it's valuable, not because it creates more jobs, not because it creates more profit, not because it enables your business to reach new heights. It just scratches your curiosity. And so there's a world where that exists, but having some type of a true north, having some type of code of conduct, it's something you and me always pride ourselves on. It's something that we have had since the beginning. We have like ancient pages buried in the website, which is like our manifesto from 10 years ago about why we were leaving our jobs to pursue what business utopia looked like. And all of it had to do with keeping it human. All of it had to do with do no harm and take no shit. All of it had to do with building responsibly and using our extreme skill for things that matter.
That was the idea behind the whole name. It was again, another climbing moment. I was in college climbing with the two people. Both were older than me, and sitting on a ledge, and they said, what was your major? And I think my major was photography at the time, but it was really kind of undecided. I was like, I don't really know what I want to do. I think I want to do that. And he said, don't think about what you want to do. Try to think about what you want to contribute, and think about how you want to help people. And through that lens, you can figure it out. And I feel like I never really stopped to really think about that directly, because it's a very hard question to answer. And I feel like it changes from time to time, but always kind of through this idea of not what I want to contribute. Am I contributing? Just ask that question. Not what am I? And so I always think when I was waiting tables and I remember leaving, and I told one of my regular customers on it was a Thursday night that, hey, I'm moving to Colorado, whatever. They were super upset. She was like tears, upset because they looked forward to coming to the restaurant. And they sat at the same table. I was their waiter. I was a part of the thing. I didn't think anything of it. But I was contributing in some tiny, tiny way, in a positive way to their life. And when I worked on a trail crew, it was, hey, maintaining these trails, making sure they're here, making sure that things are, garbage is picked up and the outhouses are cleaned out and all these things. You're still contributing. And so these are the types of things that some people walk around going, well, what loser would want to do that? And I'm like, well, I was contributing. That's it. I think that we need that. And I think there's kind of like a war happening between the people who think that who would want to do something so low, and folks like where myself is concerned, I think, well, who would want to do nothing? I mean, how many people do you know retire from like a civil service job and just sit on the couch, drink beer, and watch the game all day? They don't, and they actually miss it. They actually miss the thing because they don't have a ton to do. They talk about this all the time. There's a distance that's growing, I think, between, I don't want to say the haves and have-nots. It's not really that, but there's a distance growing between the people making the stuff and driving these kind of big societal changes and those of us that are actually living in the society that they're leaving behind.
Side note, I was on a hike the other day in Peterskill, as you know, and on the yellow trail, red trail converges to the yellow trail. On the yellow trail was a massive tree falling in the middle of the trail. And I was like, call responsibly. Got to get this thing out of here.
I'll tell you, if you ever want
that bitch out of here.
If you ever want to start an arbory company, I used to be pretty damn good with a chainsaw. Probably like now there's a big difference between cutting trees down and dropping them in a direction when there's no consequences versus like here in suburbia. I don't know if I feel so great about dropping, I knew some people who did a great job, but for us, it was like, no, I used to love like when there was like a big tree that got struck and you had to drop it. It was just, what excitement. It's the little things. It's the little things. You haven't lived till you've bucked up a tree. That's
right. Or you had to bushwhack your way around the tree to get back on trail.
Yeah, we did a forest fire. There was a few, like 100-acre forest fire when I was up there, and that was intense. That was just tree cutting on steroids, just cutting back line and digging, and that was some hard work, and only to get overtaken by the fire and end up running, and it was a good time. Maybe that's what I would do when I retire. Maybe that'll be small contributions though. As
you're sitting there playing with a Zippo lighter.
I know. Believe it or not, that fire, I think, started from someone throwing a cigarette in the woods.
I believe
It's kind of crazy to think about.
I believe it. I
I
believe it.
got some good stories from that.
Well, dude, thanks for a good episode. Thanks for a good reflection. It's always nice to read some poetry, and we'll put the book in the show notes as well. Feeding the Rat. Think
Yeah, if you're a climber, that's a necessary read in my mind. It's not all about, how hard you climb, being in the magazines, and there's a lot. This is a very old book, but he talks a lot about like the whole Olympian, like changing climbing into like the transition of climbing to a professional sport, whereas it used to be a little bit more of a I don't know,
artist sport.
a dirtbag sport.
Yeah, artist, creative,
Most
dirtbag,
of the
explorer sport. Yeah, the
you'll read it.
the outskirts of civil society.
It's worthy. It's worthy.
We're worthy too, dude. Thanks for a good episode.